Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden. This is Langley Outdoors Academy, and thank you for stopping by. All right, guys, this is an excellent episode of Bullet Points. Now, if you're new, Bullet Points is a supplemental show to our 9 p.m. slot where we cover the 2A news, the politics, the why behind what's happening, and we kind of predict where it's going to go from there because it's like reading tea leaves, only accurate. But Bullet Points gives us a little window into the left. It gives us a window into the articles and kind of the undercurrent of what's happening and hitting these ideas head on. And this episode is no different. However, this is an interesting article from New Mexico. Now, New Mexico is the hotbed right now of gun control and gun rights debates. A new bill was just introduced about safe storage and felony penalties if you don't do it right, according to the state. Right? You can go back and check our videos if you want to see all ins and outs about that in the last week. But what's interesting about this article is this person who's writing it, the author, is not far left-leaning and not far right-leaning. You can tell by the way that they're writing, it's very objective, and they're walking through their mental observations, and they're trying to arrive at a conclusion. And there's a struggle here, but it's interesting because I guarantee you all know someone who thinks just like this. And it's important to bring these things to light because these people can be reached. This is interesting, and this is how we turn the tide in the battle for our rights, and we will pass the Second Amendment blessing on to the next generation. And this is how. This is why Bullet Points exist. So let me know what you guys think in the comments field below, and the article is in the description, but let's dive in because this is important, guys. This is important. This is one to share. Responsible gun ownership will address many problems. That's the title of the article, which is true. Albuquerque has had at least one shooting daily, usually 2 or 3. Duke City has suffered 81 homicides in 2021, an average of 1 every 3 days. They had 185 shootings with injuries so far this year. It's August. Of the 165 shootings in 2020, 59 died. So he's setting it up. Okay. And this is an astute observation. You can tell this is where the person's in the middle. Always, the result of any kind of shooting brings out the left to say, pass more laws. Dead accurate. And the right to say, Second Amendment rights, arm teachers, and carry your own gun. Also right. So that's why I'm saying this guy's clearly in the middle. But it's interesting where he goes in just his basic observations, and this is where we can reach them. Admittingly, twice over the summer, national news carried stories of an armed citizen shooting someone who was shooting at people for some racist reason, stopping the shooter. Admittedly, this does work. There is an argument for self-armament to defend yourself, your family, and the populace. That's what he's saying right here. This next part is interesting. It's an example. 2 armed parishioners shot and killed a man in Texas in 2019 who came in to shoot up their church. Parishioners started arming themselves after the many church shootings in 2018, 2019. That's incredibly important because it sets up the next statement, and this is interesting. Short term, this seems like a pretty good approach. Dead shooter, no judicial snafus, or weak-kneed judge to interfere. Taxpayers saved a ton of money. So that's the saying like, oh, well, that was dealt with pretty quickly and efficiently. However, you have to take into account the average citizen, including children, witnessing a shootout in their church. That sort of psychological scarring never heals. And this is where it becomes incredibly important to reach and note that this is the point. Keep in mind, in this example, the argument that the author is making is, well, there is a good point because the parishioners did defend the church population and no one was harmed except the shooter. Well, actually, I believe in one of the parishioners. But you got to take into consideration the psychological scarring. Okay, here's my answer to that. Both of those are focusing on outcomes. Do you think that the psychological scarring would have been better or worse if that gunman had been able to do what he intended to do? But he couldn't. He was stopped by the parishioners. So in both outcomes, you have either extreme scarring and less casualties, or extreme scarring and more casualties. The reason that this is important to focus on is because both outcomes are determinative on the actions of the evil individual. The only outcome that changes in this is if someone's armed or someone is not armed. That's crucial because this person coming in to do harm, there was no change in that. They were either going to do it or they weren't, and they already made a decision they were going to. That's why this is important. They're slowly realizing in this article that you can't prevent people from doing it, so you might as well have a quicker response. Now, he's doing it almost unknowingly, but that's what I'm saying, and that's important, but let's keep going. It's clearly a different pathos for gun-toting criminals. The little respect they had for the law enforcement has been removed, either out of desperation or the effects of drugs and alcohol. When a cop yells stop, it means run faster to most of the criminal element. Now he's kind of saying this is what their position is. Maybe they're desperate, maybe this. It doesn't matter. The outcome's the same. That's what he's saying. This part, this last the way he wraps up, this is good. There is no single answer here. Just like the mass shootings to which we have all become numb, ignorant people feeling they have no option will continue to use guns to make solvable matters much worse. That's actually true. He's saying evil is going to happen. Evil is going to exist. You can't prevent this because there's no single answer, right? But right now, go check that your firearm is properly stored and no one, especially a teen or child, can get to it. Don't promote firearm safety, live it. It will stop a lot of these senseless killings. That last sentence is totally true. We live firearm safety. We're not cowboys. We live firearm safety because it protects those around us. Just like the idea of the Second Amendment protects those around us. The author here is walking through basically the flow chart of what could happen and what could not happen. Where they arrive, they may not be a gun advocate immediately. But what they were walking through is the everyday understanding mentally of what someone walks through. Well, how do we stop this? Well, the person was going to do it anyway. So it was either going to be psychological scarring or extreme psychological scarring, right? The outcome was determinative of the initial action. And that's why we arm ourselves. That's why we protect ourselves. That is why we live the Second Amendment. And the responsibility and protection of those around us also extends to safe storage on our own means. That doesn't mean that you have to have it mandated from the state with penalties. This is something that we live in. This is our world, this is our right, this is our choice, and that's a great responsibility. But with that responsibility also comes the fact that we are self-reliant, and that's what this guy's hitting on. Let me know what you guys think of this in the comments below, and I will see you guys tonight at the 9 p.m. slot.